I mean, it's a long time since I've said it on this podcast, but drill, baby, drill. Who can forget about that? You know, I mean, and the bill also puts in a lot of tax credits, I guess, in a positive sense, for drilling, which builds on what the administration has been doing about opening up parts of this country for drilling and for exploration. Here we are, another week, and keen listeners and viewers will note that this is not Bernie sitting here, that this is Finn Gomez, political director with CBS News, who oversees CBS political reporting at the White House and everywhere, who has joined us this week. Finn, you're very welcome. Great to have you.
I'm so grateful to be on.
And for those who are missing Bernie, because we know, Sumi, don't we, that he has a lot of fans and admirers.
I'm a fan and admirer.
Yeah. Well, Bernie gets a lot of messages on social media about his, we can say this because he's not here, we can embarrass him, his sex appeal. So just let everyone know, if you want to get in touch with Bernie or me and Sumi or Finn about anything, you can email us at path@bbc.co.uk. But it has been a week, hasn't it, here in the US and around the world, where major weather events have been dominating. I mean, here in particular, the desperate tragedies in Texas, still ongoing, still that search and rescue recovery operation. But there have been wildfires in Europe as well, in France. So we were kind of thinking this might be a good week to take a step back and have a look at what President Trump and his administration are doing when it comes to climate policies, environment policies, because they've been really, really active in that area.
Yeah, they have, definitely. And if you look at the messaging from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, under Lee Zeldin, who Donald Trump appointed to lead that agency, it really has been a 180 U-turn on the type of messaging that we used to hear from the EPA on the need for environmental protection to combat climate change. And now if you look at also the policies that were passed under the One Big Beautiful Bill, they also attempt to dismantle, or do dismantle, many of the clean energy policies that President Biden put in place when he was in office. And so, you know, you have things like the tax credits for electric vehicles that were phased out under the One Big Beautiful Bill. You know, we saw in the Biden administration, there were credits not only for clean energy vehicles, but also smart energy efficient homes, businesses as well. You see in the language of the One Big Beautiful Bill, this real turn to fossil fuels again. And it's a reminder of just what a stark difference there has been between these two administrations.
Absolutely. I mean, I would just add that, you know, in speaking to several leaders within the renewable energy industry, I mean, the BBB, the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill, Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, the big budget bill, in those rollbacks on climate, it sent really shockwaves through their industry just about how deep and how significant they think it's going to really impact their industry. I mean, and like Sumi, like you said, like it is night and day from what we saw at the tail end, especially at the end of the Biden administration. So, you know, and some other experts from this field I spoke to, and they feel that this does potentially set back, you know, at least in the climate change efforts by the U.S. for perhaps a generation.
It also, if we talk about the bill for a moment, or act as it is now, because of course it's been signed into law by the president, it really targets consumers in a way I think that wasn't discussed. I mean, when all of those late night backwards and forwards things were happening in the House and the Senate, the focus very much was on Medicaid, wasn't it? And, you know, the millions of people that were going to be kicked off Medicaid. But actually, there are many, many surveys out that this bill will put up, you know, cost of living for consumers in very many ways, that energy bills ultimately will go up, that, yes, those credits will be removed. And, you know, when you're listening to so many policies about how, oh, you should be putting a solar panel on your roof, that's going to be phased out, the tax credits for that by the end of the year. That will put energy bills up. And also just the regulations right across the country as well for other things. I mean, it's a long time since I've said it on this podcast, but drill, baby, drill. Who can forget about that? You know, I mean, and the bill also puts in a lot of tax credits, I guess, in a positive sense, for drilling, which builds on what the administration has been doing about opening up parts of this country for drilling and for exploration.
And Katrina, if I could just add also, I mean, uh, I also there is like political ramifications here, right? We the three of us we geek out on politics. I know we cover the 2024 campaign trail. We know it, but he did he campaigned on this. He campaigned. There was no he was very, very open about it. So you just mentioned drill baby drill. I mean, that immediately it connects him to the platform that he ran on. So this is expected, but it's also how they really use those pithy remarks and make political impact, right? But it is tied into what he's been talking about for a long time. However, the political ramifications are here, as you so correctly noted. Look, this can impact people at home. He won on the economy. He won of not just the economy, but the cost of things, inflation, kitchen table items that have impacted voters across the political spectrum. And that's why he did so well with like Latino voters, for example, 48%, according to Pew. That's a huge number, by the way. But he won them on these kitchen table issues. Now, if there's a backlash, if they start feeling that, plus you include the tariffs, right, that absolutely have an impact on wallets and budgets at home, like it changes the political game. I mean, it pretty much split up one of the most famous political bromances in history. Elon Musk is now, forming his own party and all that. And because of this, and part of it is because it was inserted in that BBB. I mean, for sure. And it wasn't just about the rebates. It was those other areas like solar and wind that really took some devastating hits here.
I think the big answer to all of this and the question about whether costs will rise for families at home is deregulation. And that's something we've seen specifically with baby drill. And to your point, Katrina, about opening up federal lands for drilling and forest land for lumber. And that is what the Trump administration says will bring down costs for Americans, energy costs in particular. And they keep pointing, of course, to the gas prices that have come down. They've pointed to the fact that inflation has come down significantly and the economy is doing quite well. But, particularly when it comes to environmental policy, it is seen by many in the Trump administration and quite frankly, other Republicans who want to see broad deregulation for building, for construction. They see it as a hindrance to precisely that type of economic growth. And, I thought it was interesting, the EPA recently, there were, I think, almost 140 employees of the EPA who were put on leave, administrative leave, because they had signed an open letter complaining about some of the EPA's new practices. And some of the points that they made in this letter are things like, promoting fossil fuels and ignoring science on climate change. But they also point out rolling back regulations on cancer-causing chemicals, for example. And you do wonder if this push for deregulation, which on the one hand is being used as this argument for why costs can come down again in the US, whether that's going to be something that really is going to have damaging, lasting effects when it comes to the climate and environment piece of this.
Yeah, and I think it was 139 staffers from the EPA, but also there was Katrina, there was the 800, it was about 800 employees at NOAA, right, that were cut.
Yeah,
that were cut, right. And
way back in February, right? It was one of the first things that he did.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a Doge effort, essentially, and they did that. And then, of course, as you mentioned, everything, the terrible events that happened in Texas, that brought up criticism from Democrats and other critics saying, hey, by the administration cutting these jobs, and in particular, I think one of them, it was the one who was responsible for NOAA, based out of San Antonio, who oversaw that sort of detection and distributing that information. He had taken a buyout essentially, and so I think that there were questions whether is this going to have an impact on these sort of natural disasters, especially while we're in the middle of hurricane season, and as climate change specialists say, some of these adverse weather events are happening because of climate change. So it's kind of this ironic sort of twist here, and the administration has faced criticism over it.
And we should just explain for our non-American listeners, NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a scientific agency, isn't it, that looks at changes in the environment, and it also operates the National Weather Service, the NWS, which does those forecasts and issues those emergency warnings and those alerts, which, as you're saying, Finn, so much of the discussion and the debate here in the last week. And you have to do it very sensitively, because obviously at the heart of this is an unbearable tragedy. I mean, even mentioning it now, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? And, like those communities will never recover from this. But the debate perhaps, will grow, I think, in the weeks ahead, when it kind of the initial rescue efforts have been completed and people look for reasons why all these children and so many other people died, why that flash flood came without, it would appear, a huge amount of warning. And, we're talking about cuts to federal workers on NOAA and the NWS. Staffing is down. I just looked this up before we came in. 20% at nearly half of the field offices. And there are at least 6 offices nationwide who don't have staff 24 hours a day anymore. Now, the one in this case, that was not the situation in Texas, we have to point out. And they have said, the workers there, that they did have enough people on duty. And although those senior posts weren't filled, there were people acting up into them. And sometimes terrible things just happen, right? We have to acknowledge that. But, the White House is also trying to cut the budgets of these agencies as well, isn't it? By massive amounts, 25, 27%, which is staffing largely, but also is other things that they see aren't where the priorities should be on this.
Well, I think you saw that a lot of supporters do believe, and they have believed for a long time, about scaling back, cutting down federal spending, right? And I think that's something that's been a heart of the Republican Party for a long time. That's changed. I mean, I think with this new act, this law that's became, you've seen it also. There's some projections. CBO said, Congressional Budget Office, who assesses these things, said that that it could increase the deficit by as much as $3 trillion, right? It goes sort of against the grain of traditional Republican thinking. However, I think those who supported him knew that he was going to target that. But what I don't think they, in speaking to some administration officials, what I don't think they expected was that there has been pushback in some of these areas, because some of these areas that have been affected by these extreme weather events are Republican areas. They're Republican congressional districts, they're Republican states with Republican leadership that represent them in the halls of Congress. And I think now, when you start seeing more of that, or potentially start seeing more of that, I think that will register more. And it's no longer, you can no longer point the finger at the previous administration. I mean, going back to politics, I'm a politics guy, and I go back to this a lot. This is what I do when I daydream. I think about politics. Like that, I'm very boring.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Right?
Boring.
Yeah,
I think about pizza. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you at least have a margarita with the politics dream?
Yeah, that's literally the lamest thing probably anyone has ever heard who's listened to your amazing podcast. But no, but there are, I think what we're seeing is right now is that you could see a backlash and come not only in these gubernatorial races that are coming up in the United States in the fall, in Virginia, and also in New Jersey, right? But also with the next year's midterms, where really, I think, Democrats especially have taken those two issues that you talked about, Katrina, these two areas, and they're utilizing it. They're utilizing it. They're testing it, they're poll testing it, and they're utilizing it. They're ready to march with a strategy that says the Trump administration has taken away your rights, has taken away your resources. I mean, this is what they're going to say. This is their argument and what they've told me. But this is essentially what to expect.
Lots of stuff to ponder with those margarita political dreams you're having there. And for all of us and our listeners and viewers as well. But we will have to wrap it up there because we are out of time. But Ben, thank you so much for being with us this week. It's been a real treat to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
And I have to run too, because I have to go join the Bernie, fan club meeting that's also going after this.
We all love you, Bernie.
Yeah. Great. Okay,
Good
talk to you soon, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode of The President's Path, then like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. and we'd love to hear from you. So please leave us a comment below or email us on path@bbc.co.uk.